an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Ghostwater Chapters 16, 17, and 18. In these chapters, I have never been so satisfied at the end of a book. This is some good shit, guys. And it was the kind of thing where I really wanted to, describe the situation to Owen, but I can't because I want him to read them. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you ever so much to Andrew for commissioning these episodes. Andy, thank you again. I say it every episode, but truly, this time, I'm just so excited to be covering these chapters. And I'm just going to start at the end because I can't help it. Guys, I would like a show of hands. Whomst among you was certain that Akura Harmony was going to get saved from this somehow? I'll raise mine. Now, we, granted, don't actually see his death, and I tend to function by the no body doesn't count rule, where unless I actually see somebody's dead body, I don't buy that they're really dead. And even then, it's questionable. But I'm going to go with the death here. I think that he's actually dead. And I really thought, because Lyndon leaves him alive, that we were going to see him again. And that we were going to get some other, a phase 2 of, the long rivalry thing, where it's going to be, the short term is going to be these gold dragons that are trying to, come at him for what's-her-face's death. And that long term, it was going to be this dude who would be brewing and getting his shit ready. I thought it was going to be a bit of a Jai Long thing. Never have I been so grateful that an authority figure is a shitty dude than I was when I read North Strider's section. Look, North Strider is an asshole. I feel like we can all agree on this, right? He literally thinks of Akura Harmony as the worm. And at one point says something about how he honors him by looking him in his eyes. Which, this is a running theme. We also see this when... Oh, man. I'm going to have a hard time remembering these dragon names, y'all. Saccharina Toth? Something like that. When she is talking to her master, the monarch of the dragons, they don't want her looking them in the eye, right? Safaranata. Thank you, Andy. Safara. Right. I think I said I was going to call her Sophie last time. So it's a whole thing that she is supposed to not make eye contact because it's like she's not worthy to look him in the eye. And honestly, I just have no tolerance for that kind of shit. And that's not to say that I don't tolerate it in a story. That's fine. I am absolutely here for, because that feels like a real thing, especially in a world where there are such clearly delineated levels of power, and there are levels of power that people will absolutely not necessarily reach in their lifetime. Somebody being a monarch, it makes some sense why everybody would look at them as if they were almost a god, and that they were unworthy and yada, yada, yada. But speaking as somebody who has this low-level fear of growing successful and forgetting where I came from and the fact that my success is often greatly due to luck, I am so afraid of ever becoming like a real snob in that kind of way. And this sort of thing is so beyond snob. I don't even know what to call it. God complex even seems a little bit too tame. It's like, I mean, especially we have seen a being who has ascended and she is willing to like talk to Lyndon. Now, granted, it's not exactly like she was going to just kind of wipe his memory and send him up, but there's no attitude that she has where it feels as if he is so far beneath her that he doesn't deserve her talking to him. And she does specialize in like saving a lot of human lives, as we've seen. So it's just one of those things where the older you get, the more that you realize the people with real power and the people who are the wisest tend to not function by the same like rules of society and don't see themselves in the way that other people of power do. We haven't seen her at all this book, and I was a little bit surprised by that. But yeah, so the book ends with North Strider. He has just killed a dragon that is a couple of miles long. My brain doesn't register that kind of measurement for a single being. I can't even picture in my head what that would even like look like. But he has done this. He's feeling a great deal of satisfaction because that's one less dragon in the world, which is really interesting that the dragons are both like respected in their way at times and also seen as like a problem. And I'm a little bit curious what's going on there with North Strider specifically. But he is cycling aura, and it is said that this is like the closest he ever comes to being content is when he's cycling after a kill like this, which tells you so much, right, about who he is. This is a man who is never satisfied by anything. And yeah, he has this incredible power, but that's no way to live. He feels like he is falling victim to what Zeal cautioned Lyndon against, which is simply becoming obsessed with the concept of power for the sake of power and not ever feeling like he has arrived or that he is done. Now, not feeling like he is done does not mean that he doesn't feel like he's better than everybody else, but it's a different thing, you know? So he gets distracted because there's a sort of twinge in his spirit that lets him know that his little pocket worlds are collapsing. Pocket world. I call it worlds because there's more than one bubble, but it's all part of one world. And he at first is kind of like, man, you know, I'm really enjoying myself cycling this like really badass blood module right now. But, and then he decides that he's going to get up and check on it. And he's irritated at the mere idea that he doesn't have I can't remember what he calls it. But it basically, he doesn't have a dross to tell him, yeah, you should definitely go back there. There's some shit that you probably want to check on or pick up or whatever. He has to just make a guess and weigh the priorities of the present moment versus the priorities of this thing collapsing against each other and make a guess. And he doesn't like that. And presence. He doesn't have a presence. That's right. That's what he calls it. So he heads down there and he goes straight to the tree. And it's so funny because he's like, the way it's written is he sees Akura Harmony and sees that he's gotten to drink 2 drops of the ghost water, which I had thought he only got a taste of 1, and that he was waiting for the second one when he was interrupted by Lyndon. I didn't even realize that he got the 2. And he doesn't pay him any mind, despite the fact that he can sense that he's still alive. He just freezes the cracks so that the world doesn't continue to collapse while he's running his errand. And he pulls out this black orb that has, it's like the next level in terms of creating a presence, but he has clearly not figured out enough yet. It's like, it's still the equivalent of like an iPhone, you know, versus like a conscious thing. And he draws all of this consciousness out of the eyes of the deep that are on this tree into this orb. And he can sense that something was there and was removed, and is able to zero in on exactly what was there and who removed it, which is really terrifying, honestly, that he can like get down to that kind of granular information. And he's like, oh, okay, so it was a true gold. He ascended really quickly due to my spirit wells, and he was able to make a construct that is actually pretty badass. Good for him. Like, this is the first time we've ever heard from his perspective. And I'm including like from his perspective as the bit of orientation that Lyndon gets when he's like walking down to confront Harmony. We see him and his like, you will have to know that you are forever in my debt. You know, he really fucking thinks quite a lot of himself. So this is the first time that he ever seems to have any sort of respect for anyone else. And it's not even like grudging. He's like, oh, somebody was able to do something with the junk that I left behind. Nice job, you know? All of that, him collecting these things and the examination of the empty mark and figuring out that Lyndon did this, all of that is intercut with him ignoring Harmony, who is trying to like get his attention on the ground. And there's something so incredibly cold-blooded about it, because Harmony is like, I'm unworthy, sir. And he's just like, there's something going on here. And Harmony's like, dude, no, I'm dying. And he's like, man, wow, good job, whoever did this. I am impressed. Okay, well, gotta go. And Akura Harmony tells him, please save me. I will belong to you. My family will reward you. I'm going to achieve great things, and all of that will be chalked up to your name. And Northstrider just says no, and then leaves him there to die. And I almost cheered aloud. I didn't, because I was reading this next to Owen, who was asleep. But I came very close. I definitely let out a low cackle. I never thought that Akura Harmony was actually going to die here. I just didn't think it was going to be allowed. He had been built up so much, you know? And I sure didn't think that if somebody found him and he looked like he was on the brink of death, we were still going to see him die. Like, I thought that was it. I thought this was his escape. This was the way in which we were going to wind up seeing him later. Y'all, it ends with no, and then he left and let the world continue to collapse on itself. And I just was like, again, Northstrider is a shitty person. It really does seem like he sucks. But I appreciate deeply his lack of mercy in this moment. It's just so, it's so delicious. Oh, I love it so much. I think this might be one of the most satisfying endings of a book I've ever read. It's just because I know that there's more coming. So it's like the fact that certain things aren't wrapped up does not bother me. The things feel wrapped up enough for me to feel very good going forward about what's happening. And this in particular, I kind of thought we were going to either right here, Harmony would be saved, or we wouldn't ever see Harmony again, and then suddenly he would pop up in the next book, like, you know, way down the line, and we'd be like, oh, this motherfucker again. And I'm so happy that this author has undermined my expectations in that regard. I didn't even really know I had those expectations until he did that, which is such a thing for me. Like, I've said before how doing what I do for a living makes it really hard to surprise me a lot of the time, because there are so many tropes that just people follow and they don't even realize that it's a trope when they're doing it, you know, or they don't mean it to be. And I don't even like blame them for that. Tropes aren't inherently bad. You know, there's a reason they're tropes, is because oftentimes they're good and they're useful and they work out. But I will get into this space where I just assume I know what's coming, and I don't even process the fact that I have that assumption. It's just there. And then when that's not what happens, my whole brain goes, what? Wait, oh my God. And it's very exciting. It's like candy. So anyway, I had to start at the end because, guys, I just can't tell you how delighted I was. And I am so excited that I get to start the next book right away. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of chapter 16. We are with Yeren and Mercy again. They are in that tent, and she has buried it like under the earth and covered the earth in scripts in order to hide them. Reminder, they were badly injured with burns when the last section ended. And so it turns out that Mercy had a ton of stuff specifically designed to help you heal burns. And I love that she says apparently they dealt with like dragons like most people deal with the frequency that most people deal with mosquitoes, which really is like, I have talked a lot about the plot of these books being really fun and good writing in that way. But I want to say there are some moments and turns of phrase that this author employs that I feel are really evocative and get a point across so quickly and nicely. And it's the kind of thing that it feels like you can sort of sink your teeth into some of the phrasing, you know? There was one in a previous book, and I think I mentioned it at the time, where, you know, the usual thing is when you're trying to say how something cut through another thing really easily, you say like a hot knife through butter, right? And there is a lot of cutting and a lot of sword play in these books. So he has to come up with different ways of saying that to get across the same thing. And you'll get like a cannonball through rotten wood or whatever. But there was one that was like a hot sword through snow, which really like made me stop and go, ooh, that's good. You know, that was a real nice one to me. And this one they dealt with, let's see, the Akura family dealt with dragons more often than mosquitoes. Really puts it in perspective. It's a nice way to say it. It's very succinct and it gets it across, you know? So it turns out that they're doing fairly well because she had so many healing potions and pills, and that's great, but they've gone through most of them now. Like, it's a good thing they had them, saved their lives probably, but they are not going to be able to go through some shit like this again and just make it out and be fine. But it is nice though. Like, I had wondered if when she dragged Mercy away, what she was going to do. I was like, well, they're both badly injured. Like, there's only so far she can go. And it didn't occur to me, Mercy has a void key. I bet she's got all kinds of other goodies in there. I didn't really like think about that, you know? And And Mercy, meanwhile, she's trying to be like, look, I'm as good as new. And Yaren's like, I mean, I guess. Because she is, like, physically able to move and her skin is healed. But her hair is, like, almost gone. And it's going to take a long time to grow back out again. And she just kind of has this faint burn scar on her cheek. And I love the fact that she doesn't want to use this, like, healing medicine. Yeren has to be like, don't make me, like, pour it over you, because I will. She keeps trying to give it to Yeren. And it says her leg was in worse shape. She hadn't been able to put any weight on it for days, but a blood elixir had restored most of the meat. A sacred herb sealed in a jade box like some kind of treasure had taken care of the rest. Which, I appreciate that we've been told once that Yeren lost her arms and just grew them back because the Sword Sage had access to crazy shit. Because otherwise I would have probably been like, it just fixed it? What? But it's established that's a thing that can happen if you have the money for it. So, all right. So it says Yeren was in a brighter spot. She had a sturdier iron body than Mercy, and she was more advanced. Whatever Mercy had done by summoning armor onto her arm, it took the lion's share of the blow. Without that, they'd both be dead. And I find this really interesting because later on, when they meet up with Lyndon again, he has a moment of really touching reunion with Yeren. Like, it's really sweet, you guys. I thought it was, like, extremely well done, and it was unexpected how vulnerable they are with each other in that moment. And Lyndon, when Mercy's like, hey, yay, we're okay, we made it. Lyndon just sort of is like, oh, you changed your hair, I like it, because he doesn't really know her very well, and he doesn't know what else to say. And I wonder if what Yeren has gone through with Mercy will count for anything with him, because we know how long it takes Yeren to trust, right? Like, it took her ages to really realize that Lyndon wasn't going to just ditch her, that he didn't have some ulterior motive for hanging around. It took her a long time to get to that spot. Mercy saved her life right here at great risk. She almost died. So I feel like that might be enough for Yeren to be like, all right, you know what? Maybe this bitch is for real and I can trust her. Lyndon wasn't there for that. So I wonder how that's going to go, like how long it'll be until he really sees Mercy as one of the gang, because it's clear he doesn't quite yet. And I want him to so bad. I like her so much. She's so delightful. And the fact that I'm already there and he hasn't quite gotten there yet, I'm like impatient for it now. I'm just like, dude, no, but she's great. Be happy to see her the way that you're happy to see Yeren. And I get it. It's not the same. They haven't been through what he and Yeren have been through. It's right that it's not the same for Mercy as it is for Yeren. But I still want to advance their relationship level really quickly is what I want. I want a friendship elixir so that they can be to true gold friends. And that's what I want. So, Yeren finally is like, she talks to Mercy about the fact that she felt like a high gold. And Mercy's basically like, yeah, that's something that I can do on my path using that book. It doesn't last. I can get to high gold for the fight, and then I go down to low gold again. I could even get to true gold, but only for like 2 minutes. And I definitely can't get to Underlord. So they've been training. Yeren has been doing that cycling and the endless sword experiment thing. And they are trying to decide what they're going to do because the tent that they're hiding in is degrading. The Madra from it is beginning to fall apart. And finally, Yeren is like, all right, you know what? We're just going to have to fight our way through. We're just going to have to go out there. And let's see, where is it? If she lured in a true gold or worse, then she'd get no chance to advance. There was risk, and then there was stupidity. So yeah, she's realizing that she's right on the brink here, and she isn't exactly sure how she's going to do this. And this turns into one of the more subtly funny sections, because long story short, Yaren uses these dragons who have been sent to hunt her and Mercy as practice dummies. And one of them figures it out that that's what she's doing and gets so angry about it. Like, really takes it fucking personally, which you would, right? Like, realizing that you're taking some shit seriously and somebody else is viewing it as purely an experiment, and they are not necessarily invested in it the way that you are. Like, not to say that Yaren's not invested in the fight, but her mind is on the advancement. She's not even really like worried about surviving this, which is the insulting part. She's not afraid for her life. She's out here being like, I mean, I might die, but I kind of doubt it. I'm just trying to advance, which is just, if you are somebody who is a fighter, that just must be such a slap in the face. Damn. So she tries a couple of times to really use this technique, and it keeps not quite working for her. And she's like, there's something missing. I don't know what the problem is here. And here it is. Her name is Dariana Toth. Are you practicing a technique right now? The dragon asked. As she spoke, Yaren could hear her disbelief turn to fury. She roared, swiping with both claws. Yaren stopped them both with one pulse of the endless sword, but it still wasn't fast enough, not sharp enough. She could do better. Another claw was deflected in a spray of sparks, and Yaren stepped closer. The sense of danger in her spirit spiked, but that was what she was looking for. So, the dragon is about to fire, the gold light technique at them. And Mercy from above, like a little maniac, sends down an arrow and basically locks the dragon's mouth shut so that all of that like gold madra that was going to spray forward just goes to either side out of the corners of her mouth, which is just so embarrassing. I just like, really, that is hugely embarrassing. And I kind of see the monarch's point later when he's like, they were fucking useless. This is embarrassing. I'm like, it is a little bit embarrassing. You're not wrong. So the dragon was truly infuriated. She dashed away and pushed her madra to its limit, shining in Yaren's spirit. You should run farther, Yaren advised. Who's running? A true gold aura flared in the distance, taking to the sky immediately. Yaren regretted the loss. She could tell she was only a finger away from a real breakthrough, but they couldn't play any longer. So she gets very sad, and she's like, all right, I guess we're going to go away. And then she senses the Underlady, and she's like, fuck. Because at first, it seemed like she was miles off. And she turns around, and this bitch is right the fuck there. And then, who should show up but Zeal? And I love this guy so much. She is trying, right before Zeal shows up, she realizes that the reasons that she has for wanting to advance are not enough. She is thinking about how she needs to go beyond herself again, that she's about to maybe lose her life, that the only way to reach Linden is to advance. None of this is quite it. If she didn't advance, she'd have to rely on her blood shadow. That wasn't it either. She knew she'd have to get used to the blood shadow soon. As much as it sickened her, she couldn't run from it forever. So then the thing that gets her. If she didn't advance, everyone else would leave her behind. Lyndon would keep growing. She'd never catch up to Ethan. And even Mercy had her advancement written out for her. Which is an interesting way of manifesting her, like, fear of abandonment. It really makes sense for that to be how she sees it and to be the thing that sort of, like, pushes her, you know? So she's standing there and she sees a Trugold dragon, and she gets hit with this memory. And I loved this so much, you guys. She gets hit with this memory, and it's her saying how she's supposed to be like cutting a rock, I think, just in half, I think is like the way it's supposed to go. And every day she fails to do it, and he goes and brings a new stone the next day. And finally, she just says, I can't do it. And he says, I've been waiting for you to say that. And he takes her over to this cave where all of the stones over this last period are lined up. And he says, this is the one you did yesterday. And it's got the deepest cut, and it's much deeper. And the stones she's trying to cut are also getting bigger. So it's clear, like, there's massive progress being made here, but she doesn't really see it in the moment. And he says, I can't wait to see what you do tomorrow. And that sort of, that's it, right? That's like the moment that pushes her through. Guys, I can't tell you how much that resonated with me today. I have been doing this weightlifting program, and it's 3 days a week. I have been doing it for 4.5 months. And there are days where I really feel like I am not getting anywhere. Why am I doing this? And the other day, I have an app that I track my workouts on. And I went back and looked at my numbers. And I started off only being able to bench press a bare bar, 45 pounds. And now I can bench press 95. I was only able to deadlift like 80 pounds. And now I can deadlift 135. The progress I'm making is absolutely there, but you lose sight of that because you have this other goal in mind that you get so focused on that all you see in the present is how you're not reaching that, and you're failing to recognize what you are doing. That's just as important. I mean, that's having a record of it. I love the fact that it turns out that he's saving all the stones somewhere in order because he knows she's going to struggle with having faith in herself. So he has to have this like way of showing her progress. And I really appreciated this as somebody who can be too goal-oriented. Being goal-oriented is often treated as an inherently good thing, but it has severe drawbacks. And one of the worst ones is failing to be in the moment and appreciating the process versus focusing solely on what it will be like when you get there in the end. You can't focus on that too much or you totally lose your perspective, and it makes you less likely to reach your goals. It's honestly, that's been proven, like that being too focused on a goal will lead to people like feeling overwhelmed and then deciding that, well, that's too far, I'm not going to reach it. And then just like sort of dropping whatever habits they're trying to develop. So anyway, this technique, she does it finally this time right here correctly. And she realizes it and she's like, oh shit, here it is. And she begins to advance. And because she's advancing in the middle of a fucking fight, it's bad. It's not great. This dude isn't doing her the favor that Jai Long did, where he was like, well, I would like to fight a high gold rather than a low gold, so I will let you go ahead and do this. Otherwise, what do I care about fighting you? This isn't about honor for these dragons. They are here to kill her. End of. And so Mercy has to jump in and cover her ass while she is kind of down for the count for a second here. Oh man, and there's some really sick attacks by Mercy. I won't get into all of that because I don't have time as much as I want to go beat by beat. And finally, she finishes advancing. And the way that she kills this last one... The high gold dragon, Darianatoth, had been webbed up by Mercy at some point. Yeren guessed when she focused on the true gold. She couldn't defend herself, and her black cocoon burst into sprays of blood. This is after she uses the strike of 1,000 axes. Blood spurted from the true gold scales too, but it wasn't enough to kill him. Not until she followed it up with a striker technique. Seconds after the wave of sword aura passed through the forest, his body fell into chunks of flesh and bone. Oh, shit. So, this is when she turns and she sees Zeal standing there. And she says, looking to pick off the winner? He took a long, low breath, letting it out like it was his last. No, he said. Oh my God. I swear to God, Zeal might be my favorite. He might be. He is just so weird. So the remnants come out. They destroy the remnants in like no time. And then this is when the fucking Underlady shows up. And Zeal interferes. She asks him, who the fuck are you? Because he comes out with, I am the Beast King's witness. I witness a lady attacking 2 golds. Fall back, or he has cause to intervene. And it's like all said in this really like tired, like, ugh, sort of voice. And she looks over and she's like, but who are you though? And he says, nobody. I mean, I'm just like, really, I'm not. And she tells him, I'm not going to bow to you, and I'm not going to bow to your master. Fuck both y'all. I don't know what any of this is about. And he's like, well, I guess you're going to have to live with the fact that you just said that shit. Because guess what? And the fucking mammoth wakes up and stands up. The stranger pointed in that direction. My friend was listening. He's not happy. Yo, look. I don't want a mammoth mad at me, I'm just saying. The golden 1,000-mile cloud, the size of a town, rushed in as though blown on a storm's wind. 2 true gold dragons dropped from it right in front of Safaranatoth. Safara, one said, we have to leave. The mammoth blasted another note. We have to leave right now. I want to see what the fuck this mammoth can do that they have this reaction. They sound like they are freaked out. And I am dying to see. Oh my God, I'm dying to see. I am so curious. This Beastmaster, man. So, she gets up on this cloud. You can't hide from me. I will find you. And I'm just like, bitch, get out of here. Look, I'm not saying she's not scary, but I am saying that she needs to get her shit straight because she's out here attacking 2 people who had nothing to do with it, and it's embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing. What are you even doing? Ugh. I will say, though, that it's interesting to me that the true golds that are trying to stop her from the attack at all, in the last section, they seem to be like, oh my God, you're attacking a Skysworn and a Kura and somebody from like Red Moon Hall. And yet it was totally fine for Harmony to kill one of the Sky Sworn. And that didn't seem like that was going to be a thing. So I'm assuming that is an indication that the Akura are higher level and more important than these dragons are. And that means that they can kind of do whatever the fuck without the kind of consequences that these dragons might suffer. But I might be wrong about that. So, let's go back to Lyndon and the fact that he has a fucking presence now, which is banana pants. Bananas! Guys, he has some shit that a fucking... What is North Strider? Is he Sage level? What do we call it? Is he a Monarch? Well, whatever he is, he's really fucking high level. And he doesn't even have one of these things. He's trying to get one. And look, he acts all like, wow, good for whoever that is managing to, like, cobble together a thing that I want, like, that means something from all this crap that I just left here. But I have a suspicion, were he to realize what Lyndon actually did, he wouldn't be quite so magnanimous about it. I feel like this is the sort of thing that makes a person kill someone for their remnant. That's what this sounds like. And I don't know that Dross is so attached to Lyndon that he would come with the remnant, but I'm going to assume that could happen. And that feels really dangerous. And I am worried about Lyndon keeping this shit secret because I don't know if Dross or he is aware of how valuable this could be to somebody. And Lyndon's just, he's playing with a lot of dangerous toys all of a sudden. And I feel like he's finally reaching the point where he's going to start attracting a lot of attention. And it's going to be the kind of thing where he's just somebody that people want to, like, go up against for the sake of it at this point, you know? But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. They come up on Harmony. Again, the fight hasn't even started yet here. And Orthos is like, he's almost at Underlord. So just be careful because he's definitely going to have, like, a secret, awesome, badass backup weapon in his soul space. And he says, but he'll have soul fire in his body, but he won't be able to infuse it into his techniques yet. Lyndon is like, wow, that doesn't sound too bad to me. And he knows that he should be scared, but the black flame is just making him, like, champ at the bit. He just wants to fight. And honestly, a Lyndon who's out here looking for a fucking fight is kind of my jam right now. It's just such a turnaround from where he's been, where he's avoided fights. He keeps getting into shit with people who are higher level and he's so worried. And to see him come up against somebody that he should be more afraid of, even Orthos is afraid of this guy and doesn't really want this fight. And to be like, I'm not concerned about it, is some big dick energy, kids. That is like, he's grown. He's grown. And I just like, I keep thinking about moments like this. And I won't even start talking about this until later. But the big dick energy of the later moment is also very impressive to me. So, Harmony begins to try and come at Lyndon with this fucking laser thing that he used on Renfei. Which I really kept thinking, there's some movie, a really bad movie, and it's like a horror movie set in like a spaceship, and it's not Alien, but it's like an Alien ripoff, where there's a grid of lasers, and it's like a security system, and this dude is trying to like get through the security system, and for a second it looks like it worked, and then all of a sudden his body falls apart in like perfectly cubed, diced pieces because this laser. And that was all I could think about this scene, was like Harmony setting up like a grid system of these lasers, which would be really difficult to avoid. But meanwhile, oh my god, I love to Devin says Resident Evil. I never watched Resident Evil, so I must have only seen that scene. Maybe Owen showed that scene to me. But okay, thank you, Devin. And welcome, Devin, also. So Lyndon tries to like smooth things over by saying to Harmony, We have no grudge against the Akura clan. I serve on a sworn squad, that is hard to say, with Akura Mercy. Let's leave together. At the sound of Mercy's name, Harmony's expression twitched. Lyndon couldn't read his expression, but the young man's spirit grew darker. Shouldn't have said that, Orthos muttered. OMG. I am dying to know what happened between him and Mercy. Because what it feels like is he got humiliated by Mercy and she was punished for being better than him somehow. And this moment of Lyndon bringing her up right before he goes on to humiliate this guy is just lovely. So, fight. Eventually, he's like, I gotta get to Dross. He sees Dross up there as part of the tree, and he thinks he's too late. But he has to go and try anyway. So he yells at Orthos to hold it down, and he heads up there. He's able to open the cage. There's no like key or anything that he needs, but Dross is locked in place. So he has to sort of use his remnant arm to sever whatever is attaching Dross and pull him out. And at first he's like, did this work? But Dross finally seems to like wake up and is talking normally, and he seems like he's okay. And yet he's like fainter. It's clear he's not quite where he needs to be. He could dissipate. And he has to activate the portal. So making sure that he gets solid enough to do that job is crucial right now. And let's see. A purple spark flared over the stone basin at the base of the tree, and Lyndon followed Dross's direction, hopping down in front of it. I know so much now, the construct said in wonder. More than I ever thought possible. So he flies out of the vessel, and he's able to activate the script that causes Ghostwater to come out of the tube. And I'm over here thinking, oh, he's going to feed him Ghostwater, and that's going to win the fight. I was thinking too small. That was what I assumed in the last section, was that Harmony hadn't gotten to drink the second drop, and that Lyndon was going to get it. Again, was thinking too small. So he asks Lyndon for samples of all of the waters from all of the wells that they have seen so far. And Lyndon opens the void key and is able to leave it open and allow Dross to complete this thing without him, because he has to go and back up Orthos. Dross, though, is so insubstant, is that a word? Unsubstantial? That he can't carry all of the water that he needs. And so eventually he has to like beg for help from Little Blue, who I haven't really gotten a lot of time to talk about Little Blue and what a lovely little side character she is. But there is this moment here. I'm going to read this because I just found it so funny. Dross struggled, panting like he had lungs, to pull a single vial of life water out of the Void Key's open storage. You're not going to help, are you? He asked Little Blue. The Sylvan cocked her head at him and whistled. It's not about carrying heavy things. It's about your attitude. Do you hear what I'm saying? Willingness to help. That's all I'm looking for. Moral support. Little Blue raised her arms in the air and gave a cheer that sounded like wind chimes. See? That's all I wanted. And I just thought this was so cute and so funny. I just really loved this. Eventually, he reaches the end of his strength. He really can't carry that last bit. And finally, Little Blue, like, sort of sets her jaw and really makes an effort. And she is able to come and bring the last bottle over. And he asks her, why didn't you do that before? All 4 colors now whirled in the basin, the air around them crackling with power. She was as wary as he was. That power could tear them apart or change them fundamentally. Of course, that was almost the idea. So I'm thinking at this point, Lyndon's going to drink this for himself. Then I'm like, wait, maybe Dross is going to dunk himself in it. Because I guess I knew that, like, earlier, Dross couldn't process the water and he needed Lyndon's body to do it. But I sort of expected that because now Dross has, like, an actual body with a mouth, that would allow him to drink it himself and he'd be able to sort of level up without needing Lyndon's body. But it turns out that's not true, and I guess that's partially due to the fact that Dross isn't, like, physical. He has a body, but it's still like a Madra body, I guess. So finally, he called, and it says Dross gathered himself looking for Lyndon one more step, and he needed a physical body for this part. Then the grand work would be complete. And guys, when I read that sentence, I felt like such a fucking idiot. It didn't even enter my mind that what North Strider was going for was a presence like Suriel has. And it didn't enter my mind that Lyndon being here probably meant Lyndon was going to manage to do the thing that North Strider was trying and couldn't manage. I just figured this is an abandoned project. Nobody's going to manage it. The parts are all broken down. So when he says the grand work would be complete, and I realized, oh my God, the entire point of Ghostwater, and we're going to actually do this. It seems so obvious in retrospect, but it didn't occur to me. So that sentence, I'm just like, oh, duh, Natasha, fuck. So we go back to Lyndon and Orthos, who are trying to fight Akura Harmony. I love this moment so much. Dross asks to get inside Lyndon's body, and Lyndon lets him in and begins absolutely sprinting towards the portal. And Dross is yelling at him, wrong way, turn around, which was so funny to me. So Lyndon, listens. He doesn't question. He's just like, okay, fine. He runs back and he sees the water spinning around, and he's like, what is this? He says, that's ghost water. Will this help us beat Harmony? Well, it will help you fight Harmony. I can guarantee that much. And then he says, North Strider's grand work failed because this collective mind he created had no initiative or creativity. It did only what it was told. Not to brag, but as it turns out, all they had to do was let a memory construct soak in the dream well for 50 years. You could take this yourself if you wanted. Your mind would be enhanced far beyond Harmony's. But if you give it to me, we'll have finished the North Strider project. And I gotta tell you guys, I respect so much that Lyndon decides to go that way with it, because I can't say that I would have had the vision that he did in this moment. I might have just drank that shit for me, because I would want to just beat this motherfucker right here. I don't think I really understood the way in which a presence would help in a battle, because it seems so removed from actual fighting. But thank God that Lyndon doesn't think like I do, because it turns out that he's able to do quite a lot for Lyndon. And there's this moment just before he drinks it and it begins cycling that Orthos crashes down next to him, and there's cracks in his shell, and he says, I'm at my end. And I almost lost it. I thought he was going to die, and I wasn't ready for this. And he may die eventually, but I couldn't. Not right now, and not because of Harmony. Fuck that guy, you know? So finally, the Ghostwater gathered Dross, pulling him up through Lyndon's channels until the spirit rested where his neck met his head. Lyndon finished the last of the Ghostwater, taking a deep breath. What do I do? He demanded. There was a brief, sharp pain in his spirit, like a pinprick on his neck that cut straight to the soul. And then Dross was part of him, seared into his Madra channels like he'd been nailed there. Dross's voice echoed in Lyndon's mind and soul. One battle plan coming up. Information requested. Y'all, I was listening to the audiobook, and when he says information requested, I almost lost my damn mind. I didn't get it. I just didn't get what we were going for here. I still wasn't really on the, like, a presence like Suriel's. I still didn't get it. And when he said that, all of a sudden it all came crashing together for me, and I was like, oh, no way. This was so exciting. So we begin the report, and he basically goes down the line of exactly what the fuck Lyndon should do to fight Harmony. And I can't tell you how great it is. There's a moment in which Lyndon dies, and it's so fun. Right now, he'll strike while he's blind. You should block that. And Lyndon reaches. He's not fast enough. The axe cleaves through hand, arm, shoulder, spraying blood. The pain fades. Lyndon collapses. The last thing he sees is Harmony raising the weapon for one final strike. Sorry, I meant dodge it. And I'm like, what? How can he undo that? I didn't realize none of this is actually happening. This is all him showing Lyndon how it's going to go. And then we get to the end, and that's one dead enemy. It's simple. It's clean. And there's only minimal chance for failure and a horrific death. Now go out and do it. Report complete. And I was like, oh my God. Guys, I got so excited I can't even tell you. This was just all so unexpected. I was so excited. Okay. So, Lyndon takes Harmony down. And he is not dead. But understandably, Orthos is like, kill this motherfucker. Kill him. And Lyndon stops him from shooting his dragon fire, his dragon's breath at him, and tells him, we're leaving. As a gesture of goodwill to the Okura family, I would be happy to take you with us. And Orthos is following him like, dude, no. They're going to see this as a disgrace and a humiliation. They are not going to be cool about the fact that you did this. And Lyndon is like, but I'm being nice. I'm not killing him. This is good of me. And basically Orthos is like, nah, better to be dead than be beaten like this by someone below you. Like, no. Honestly, I feel like Lyndon needs to get a little bit more in Yaren's headspace in order to understand other people a little bit better, because he's thinking about things like, it's like when Yaren realized that Mercy had been disowned by her family, and Yaren was like, disowned? That's really cruel. Why didn't they just kill her? That would have been way nicer. Lyndon needs to think that way a little bit more, because he's not getting it. And clearly, Orthos is 100% right. Because they're about to leave, and Harmony stands up and is like, I want you dead. I want your family dead. I want your home burned to the ground. And Lyndon's standing there like, really? Are you serious? And here comes that big dick moment. He reaches into his pocket to grab that keystone. Is that what it's called? He's about to be able to break it and let himself out. Gatestone. Thank you, Andy. Oh, Devin's in the chat says, same, I lost my shit here. I can't even tell you. I can't spoil this for Owen. I need him to... I'm going to try and make him listen to these over the Thanksgiving break, because we're going on a trip, and it's like a road trip, so we're going to have a lot of driving, and I'm hoping that if I get him to listen to the first book, he will get hooked and let me like play them throughout the entire vacation. Because we're just going to be in a cabin, you know? But at this moment, he's about to pull out the Gatestone, and Lyndon uses his soul cloak and just like pulls himself over there with perfect precision. The soul cloak helped his body move almost before he thought of it. No sooner had he activated the technique than he stood before Harmony, clasping his wrist in one pale hand. That seems a little extreme, Lyndon said, plucking the gate stone from his hand. He hurled it against the wall, where it burst into blue light and another mess of spatial cracks. The room was crawling with hairline fractures now, and they were getting faster and faster. Harmony lunged for him, swirling the last of his Madra to enforce himself. Lyndon slammed an empty palm into his core. As the Akura dropped, Lyndon walked back to the portal. He has refused our offer of a way home, so we'll leave him to make his own way back. Oh, shit! Like, honestly. Lyndon is bae. That just, like... I love it so much. Oh, my God. I love it so much. And they go through the gate, which, by the way... Dross is able to activate with, like, no effort. He goes at it, and he's like, ooh, this is going to be really tricky. And then it instantly lights up, and he's like, oh, that was not tricky. Okay. So Dross is clearly capable of a lot more than he thinks he is yet. I'm very excited to explore that. But they go through the portal, and he turns around, and he can see Ghostwater collapsing around Harmony. And still, even after all this, Lyndon's like, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't. And then Orthos shoots the portal with dragon breath and it disappears. And Lyndon's like, yeah, all right. Yeah, you know what, that's fair. So I'm out of time, but I'm going to go over because I don't have another recording after this. Forgive me. So then we go to chapter 18, which is Fisher, Gesha, and Athan. And this is great. So Athan and Fisher Gesha are going to see the king. And it's all the usual pomp and circumstance. Prostrate yourself before him. Show your gratitude. And Athan is just like, fuck. Oh, this is so boring. Meanwhile, Fisher Gesha is like, whatever you want. Oh my God, I'll never leave the floor. Like, it's just the two of them are such good foils for one another. And, the king gives Gesha a box full of, like, really valuable shit. The box was filled with rows of high-grade force scales, as well as 3 pills, like shimmering balls of gold. And he's like, oh my God, thank you. But also, I'm really old. I shouldn't be taking this stuff. Like, I don't have a lot left to my life. Can't I give this to my family? And the king's like, nah, no, you can't do that. And she seems real sad. And then he's like, because you can give these to your family. And he just, like, ushers out 2 other people who are carrying 2 other boxes of the same stuff. And she just, like, bursts into tears. And it's really, really sweet. So she is asked to leave so that the king can talk privately with Athan. And I love this so much. When the doors slammed again, signifying that Gesha had left, the whole room relaxed. The emperor pulled the crown from his head, withdrew his wings, and let out a breath. The crier knuckled the small of his back, stretching. Some of the servants started chattering among themselves. Even the gong attendant slumped down to the floor, leaning his back against the wall. Last audience for the day. I love this. The king has been, like, using the like a wind technique to sort of like amplify his voice, and he has it turned off because he's just tired now. And he talks to Athan and is just basically like, you did some good work. And I let them take away you being patriarch of your family because you were getting a little out of hand, but this kind of won me back over and you can be patriarch again. And Athan, who has spent most of these chapters like, God damn it, I hate not being patriarch. I need that shit back. He's just like, nah, I'm good. And I love this. Juan is like, are you really doing this, man? I'm doing you a favor. Why do you gotta be like this? Come on. And Athan's like, look, it's not that I don't want to do what you ask. It's that you need to trust more that what I want is going to be good for you too. And I love that he says something about like, do you think that I'm not loyal to the Empire? And Juan is like, I mean, it's not that I think you're not loyal. It's that I think when it comes down to it, you believe in yourself and obey yourself more than anybody else. Whatever you want is going to take priority over literally anything. And Ethan thinks to himself like, I mean, that's 100% correct, but I can't like agree with him. Oh, this is so funny. So finally, he's like, look, what I want is to be on the Skysworn. That's what I want. You know that I've got 3 people who I think might be able to compete in this wild tournament that's coming up. They are very good. And I think that they could be Underlords. If you put me on Skysworn and allow me to have a real hands-on training approach, I think I'll be able to do something pretty badass for this empire. And basically Juan is like, and you're not going to try and take over the Skysworn? You're not going to try and like usurp Narugwe? And Ethan's like, of course not. To which I'm like, I want to believe you, Ethan, but I'm not willing to just like discount that entirely, because I don't think he would usurp Narugwe for the sake of it, which Narugwe seems to really think Ethan just wants to like fuck him up for fun. But I think if something happened that required him to usurp Narugwe to achieve that end, he would absolutely do that shit. So we'll see. So Devin says, I swear this is one of those series where my favorite character is whichever one is on the page at the moment. I don't think I've had one moment of disappointment when the character perspective changes. Hard agree. That is a rare thing too. And these characters are all so different that you would really think there would be at least one where you're like, this again. And no, never happens. I don't understand how this book series isn't like way more popular. And everybody that is asking me lately, do you recommend anything? I'm like, the Cradle series. And just people don't listen to me the way they need to listen to me. What have I cultivated Unspoiled for if not to be the authority on recommendations? So, all right, last bit. I'm so over time, but what can you do? So we have Lyndon climbing the cliffs on the edge of the island, and he's trying to hold on to Orthos at the same time. It really, like, he's struggling here. And he gets to the edge, and these, like, tendrils grab him. And he is, like, lets go because he figures falling and being out of enemy hands is preferable. And it turns out, of course, that this is Mercy, and she has grabbed him and pulls him up over. She is very out of breath when they come up over the edge, though. It costs her. And when Lyndon comes up over the edge, Yaren just like cannonballs into him, and she starts squeezing him so hard that she's almost breaking his ribs. And it was very funny to me. Like, eventually he's like, no, I think you are breaking my ribs. I wondered if there was going to be a kiss here, because it's felt like there might be a little bit of a romance thing. But I gotta say, guys, I have just been so pleased at the restraint this author has shown with not having that happen. And it's not like I'm against it totally, but I just kind of expected it. And I'm glad that doesn't seem to be the dynamic between the two of them. Like, it's not like they're, like, I kind of thought that's where we were going outside the training area in Black Flame, that was them hinting at there being this sort of chemistry between them. But it seems like really it was more a physical proximity that we don't really like allow between like men and women who have platonic relationships, that the author is like allowing them to enjoy because it's comforting without turning it into something sexual, which is really, really rare. And I just really appreciate this. I don't know if it'll continue this way. And if it doesn't, I'm not really going to be upset about it, but it is just surprising. And I stand by wondering if Jai Chen isn't going to be a thing for him later. Like, there's just a feeling there. I don't know. But who knows what's going on with Jai Chen and Jai Long. I am very curious, but we'll see. Maybe they'll show up at the tournament. Oh my God, because Jai Long is going to be like Underlord now, right? I can't wait. Okay. So, well, I don't know though, because the Jai clan's sort of what's the word? They've been dismayed, dishonored, disgraced. That's the one I want. I don't know. So, okay. This is when Yaren notices that he has leveled up to true gold. Devin says defunct. True. That's also a good one. And when she realizes that he's at true gold, that he's leveled up twice, she's like, okay, let me in there. I need that shit. And he's like, sorry, it's kind of totally collapsing. I can't let you in. And she's so like, there's another moment later where she's like, are you sure that I can? He's like, yeah, sorry, you really can't. But she's also true gold. So they are on the same level now. And I think it's really interesting when he senses Mercy and realizes that she's still low gold, how weak she seems to him from where he is now, which is really interesting. So this is when he has to introduce Dross, because Dross starts talking and they all react pretty violently because this is really weird. Dross is something they have no experience with at all. And let's see. They mention, Mercy says that, how are we going to get out of here? She says we could go find Hammer Guy. And Yaren says he won't help, ran back to his herald without so much as dropping his name. And Orthos says, well, let's see if the ship is still there. And Yaren says, well, I just have to hope that the dragons have gone. And Lyndon's like, all right, tell us what's going on with the dragons. And that's when we cut to Saphara, who is basically talking to her monarch, who is like, you fucked up. You suck. I'm embarrassed. You have to fix this. Go to that tournament and kill everybody. Because if you don't manage to just absolutely steamroll them all, I am not interested in ever seeing your fucking face again. And she takes that shit very seriously. She is cowed. So, and then the very last bit is the North Strider bit, which I talked about already. So, yeah, that is the end of the book. I'm so over time. I really have to go. But thank you again, Andy, for this. This was so much fun. This has been a rollicking romp. And I'm very excited for the next book. And thank you, Devin, for hanging out with me and for reading this and listening to my recommendation, Devin. It's appreciated. And I will be seeing you all again soon with the first chapters of Underlord. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.